And next on our list is Life Healthcare. Interesting corporate history. It was a bunch of hospitals which Afrox got involved with because, of course, it was a gas supplier and there was some issues and it built it up. It was listed for a while as Afrox Health, then it delisted, then came back in 2010 with some empowerment shareholders and other market participants who kind of brought it on to the market. It's done well, although it has also had a little bit of a sideways drift in recent months. We'll look at that in a minute. It's recently been expanding globally, but not into the developed world like those other two, like Switzerland and the UK. These guys decided to go into other developing markets similar to here in sub-Saharan Africa, and they picked Poland, which is an interesting one, and India as well. So they've been acquiring and moving, but it's still a relatively small contribution to total global earnings, mostly still South Africa. 39.7 billion rands worth of market cap, PE of price to earnings ratio, that is, of 21.08, and a high dividend yield, 4.05%. What do you think of these guys, Wayne?
Look, I actually like what they're doing. I like the idea that they're going through to less developed, less competitive markets. They seem to be doing quite well in Poland. India is still growing. So in other words, the jury's maybe still a little bit out.
I mean, the Indian market must be enormous. The number
enormous,
of people there with poor healthcare choices must be
and the number of
massive.
rich people there are getting more and more every year. Because the Indian economy is actually growing one of the best rates in the world. It's actually picked up quite nicely.
They own 46% of a group called Max or something, and they obviously have Indian partners, which is probably a good thing.
And maybe that's the way to go, is to own a minority stake in an established company with locals.
Because you think dealing with the South African government's quite tricky, you should try dealing with the Indian government. They've got all sorts of strange ideas about local ownership and regulation.
They are far more socialistic than South Africa, far more so. In fact, you can almost venture to say, if communism was still popular, there'll be a communist country, but just not luckily enough. So they've done quite well in that. One big red flag caution here. Their earnings in their last set of results were up 1% because of the dilutory effect of the debt they raised.
Which they raised in the Rand market.
In Rand, that's the key. And they invested globally.
Yeah.
So normally you would want to raise debt in the same currency that you invest in, because at least then you're not taking a currency call on the debt. Now last year it seemed like a fantastic idea to raise Rand debt for global acquisition, but this year might not be that good an idea. Their underlying earnings grew 14%. I think their net profit before any funnies grew 13-14%, which I suppose is maybe a little disappointing for the 20-odd PE ratio, but at least the dividend yield's nice and high at 4. And as I said earlier on, I like the idea that they're going into India and Poland rather than trying to compete in the UK or Australia.
Or Switzerland or something. Okay, well, let's look at the share chart, because what this will reveal on a 5-year basis is that they had a very nice, very quick start, but that was also just people figuring out, hey, this thing is actually quite valuable, because it only just came on the market in 2010. But it has gone a little bit sideways since then, and maybe just reflecting its dominant South African business and concerns around the competition inquiry and the market maturity issues that you mentioned. But, I mean, they're continuing to roll out new facilities, something in Saxonwold, Johannesburg, called the Genesis thing in Piet Retief. So they're buying these kinds of facilities, adding on, as you said, to the existing facilities. Also, management-wise, Mike Fleming was there at the helm for a long time, but he has been replaced in the last year and a half by Andre Meyer, who was the CEO of MedScheme. And that's interesting, because remember, these guys make most of their money from the medical aids. And MedScheme and Discovery are the largest. So that kind of ongoing interaction. So a guy who knows how those guys think is pretty valuable.
Look, I mean, if you head up a hospital group, you got to know something about it, but essentially you're a business person. I mean, this is a proper business. And I mean, and very successful. And I certainly remember going back many, many years when it was still part of Afrox. This was a major part of their business and a very good part of their business.
Turned out to be a much better business.
Much better business than Afrox.
Gas.
And I mean, this was one of the reasons why Afrox, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, was the bluest of blue chip shares. You couldn't get better.
Isn't it funny? Okay, good. Right, so it's a sizable operation. It's not quite in the All-Z 40, but it's certainly credible, big, and well established. So we got to go hot or not? What do you think?
I'll go hot in it with the proviso: if the Rand strengthens, share price isn't going up. But longer term, definitely hot, yes.
Okay, so we're going to go hot on that one.